like the Diddy thing was like an Epstein type compromise deal where he had, whether he was doing it himself, conceivably, people want to think that he's attached to some intelligence agency or something like that. I think he's a gangster who made $1 billion and knew how to control people by compromising them. That's what I think. Whether or not he had help, I don't know. Whether or not he shared some of that information with people so they knew they had compromising stuff on people, I don't know. But clearly he was doing it for his own jollies too. There was something sick about it.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is that people in the music and entertainment industry had to know that Diddy was like abusing, kids basically. And yet they still fed him kids. And like, where's the accountability?
There had to be rumors. There had to be. They
had to know.
Yeah.
They had to know.
Cat Williams was talking about it on
exactly.
Yeah, on that podcast.
But like who's feeding him the kids,
Right. Yeah. And what videos do they have of these people where they're willing to defend him and they're willing to keep quiet about all this? Like how many people were compromised?
Yeah.
The whole thing is fucking crazy.
Crazy.
It's just crazy when because the nutty conspiracy theories is like, oh, there's a bunch of pedophiles in Hollywood. And you're like, come on, that sounds too kooky. And then you see like the Nickelodeon thing and all these.
Wait, say that again. Because Elon Musk and 50 Cent just dropped what a lot of people online are calling a straight-up truth bomb. And it's got the entire industry uncomfortable. And here's the twist nobody saw coming. According to this framing, Diddy isn't the final boss. He's the distraction. If you've been staring at him like he's the endgame, people are saying you've been reading the wrong map the entire time.
Think about this. Sean Carter is responsible for enacting Hype Williams to put Aaliyah on a faulty plane to move her out the way as punishment for rejecting him, and so he could level up Beyonce, who was struggling. Let's just say allegedly that happened. Now I want you to think about 106th and Park with Mary J. Blige. Free, who is a victim of Sean Carter.
Yeah.
Mary J. Blige, who is a victim of Sean Combs, are sitting there talking about the death of Aaliyah amongst each other. Think about that. You got a Diddy victim, you got a Jay-Z victim, and you got a superstar gone. They know what happened, and yet they had to sit there and have that conversation like they didn't know who did.
Because this time, it's not just talk. Elon doesn't move on vibes, he moves on data. Receipts, archived information. Years of private messages from the Twitter era, now known as X. The kind of material that could flip narratives overnight if it ever came into play. That's why people online are mapping this like a pyramid. Bottom level, names like Jay-Z and Beyonce. Middle level, so-called gatekeepers, figures like Oprah Winfrey and Clive Davis. And at the top, one name people claim ties it all together, hiding in plain sight. And it doesn't stop at studios and boardrooms.
Gave me a raw deal because this industry is a monster. It's the same monster that these Me Too trying to tell you about. But they hate the monster for how it, and I hate that monster for how it eats. But my God, man, it's the same monster. When I quit the show, all my friends would say, well, up them days, why don't you just do Chappelle's show at another network? Yeah. And why doesn't a slave run from one plantation to another plantation? Because the master over there might be nicer. My God, man, I was trapped. You know what? Tell you the truth. I've even thought about coming back and doing another Chappelle show. Well, but if I...
The conversation stretches into influence, image control, and even the pulpit. 50 Cent has been hinting at that angle for months, suggesting power doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it wears respectability. So yeah, buckle up. But before we climb, understand this.
Does Jay-Z sit down with Gayle King and she not ask him one question about the intersection between him and Aaliyah and Robert Kelly? This is insane that people keep refusing. I've been screaming, not just Diddy, but Diddy and Jay-Z are monsters. Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, Robert Kelly, Sean Combs have one person in common professionally and privately. Sean Carter. This has been a fist of tyranny that has been punching through. That changes now, Sean. You have no choice. That Dream Hampton was being financed and ran by Sean Carter. They were able to go and get all of these witnesses because he was there with Robert Kelly.
The Diddy situation matters way beyond hip-hop. And no, this isn't a long biography. This is about what you actually clicked for. 50 Cent dropped his Diddy documentary, The Reckoning, framing it like nobody else in the industry had the courage to speak. His argument was simple and sharp. Silence makes the whole culture look complicit. So, he stepped into the fire himself.
That's suing Tony Busby. Spiro is a partner, and Alex Spiro is Jay-Z's personal lawyer.
Oh, so it's probably Jay-Z then that's doing the suing.
Of course they'd use Kevin's name,
Why
but
is
it
it-
ain't Kevin. Why is Alex Spiro popping up everywhere?
What do you think is going on in Hollywood right now? What are you hearing? Because I'm hearing
Mass panic. Mass
Everyone-
panic.
So because no one's talking publicly.
No, I
But
can't.
behind-
That's why they came up with the story. Well, you know, there's a party inside the Diddy party. And I went to the first party, but I left early. I never made it to Diddy After Dark. There were public relations teams right after Diddy got arrested running around telling everyone to say that.
Of course.
The question is this. If all you went to was the first party and you didn't know anything about the After Dark, why would you say, I left early? Why wouldn't you just say you left when the party ended?
Exactly.
Because how would you know
That
there
there-
was another party
Exactly.
if you weren't informed?
Exactly.
If you went to the Diddy party and nothing happened and it was the first party, your speech wouldn't be, oh, well, I only went to the first party. I
Right.
didn't go to the after party. You wouldn't say that because you wouldn't have known about
Exactly.
it. You would say, I don't know what anybody's talking about. I went to Diddy's party. It was a white party. It was dancing. It was wild. But at the end, we all went home.
Right.
That's not what y'all are saying.
Nope.
You're saying, I didn't go to the second party. I only went to the first. The only thing you're proving is that you're hiding being there
Yeah.
because you wouldn't have known about another.
Exactly.
Now here's where it gets darker. One of the biggest claims circulating is that Diddy allegedly had a massive number of hidden cameras inside his home. Hundreds. Recording what went on during those after-hours gatherings. Commentators like Jaguar Wright and Gene Deal talk about it like it wasn't entertainment at all. They frame it as leverage footage. Not for fun, not for memories, but as insurance. A silent system that keeps people obedient without ever needing to make a threat.
Favorite memory working with Diddy?
You know, personally, I've got to tell you, he really is a major star in this film tonight. He's his spokesman all the way through. I met him before I ever knew of him. I met him when he was 21 years old. And when we met, you know, he played me Craig Mack Flavor in Your Ear. He played me 3 cuts from the forthcoming Notorious B.I.G. album. And we talked for hours and hours about music, and I poured into his dream. And I financed Bad Boy Records. And we had an incredible run, an incredible period.
And now the rumor is that those recordings are being quietly moved around, while big names panic behind closed doors. So why does Elon Musk change the equation? Because Elon owns X, and that means he sits at the top of a platform holding years of private conversations between celebrities, politicians, and power players. When Elon sat down with Joe Rogan, he didn't just hint. He called out the gap between what people say publicly and what they didn't say when it actually mattered. He brought up Jennifer Lopez, not as a political debate, but as a credibility test. If you were that close back then, where was the warning? Where was the alarm? And the implication was simple. It didn't happen. That moment lit the internet on fire because it forces one ugly question.
Diddy and TD Jakes.
Man, what I think about it is this, when I grew up in the church, the sinners was not supposed to have the same atmosphere with the saints. You had to be able to separate the two. So I'm looking at him as a saint going to a party that ain't nothing but sin, drinking, maybe fornication, man on man, woman on woman, he on she. But maybe he there to lay some hands on somebody. Maybe he there to save some souls. I know he got a contract with Revolt, so I'm just like, it's just real strange that he would be found at any kind of Diddy party or any kind of place with Diddy unless it's in a business atmosphere.
So why do you think he was going to these parties?
I think that he's going to the Diddy parties, bruh. If he's going, well, we know he's going to the Diddy parties, and I know that it's, I know what usually happens at the Diddy party, or what we told us happened at the Diddy parties. Maybe he need to see it for himself, man. Maybe he need to go there and really be involved in some things that could help save some individuals while they going to those.
If someone was that close and never spoke up, what does that really mean? Either they didn't know, which many people find hard to believe, or they knew something and stayed quiet. And if they stayed quiet, the next question becomes unavoidable. Why? Fear, loyalty, image, or protection? And if protection, protection of who? Now let's climb. Level 1, Jay-Z and Beyonce. And yeah, you might be thinking, only level 1. Just wait. Jaguar Wright did an interview with Piers Morgan and made claims she wasn't supposed to make about Jay-Z, Diddy, and how deep those connections allegedly run. People immediately started saying the episode disappeared fast. Pulled, buried, hard to find. She also raised a question that's been floating for years. How does Jay-Z sit with Gayle King on CBS and never get pressed on certain long-running rumors and industry ties? Jaguar used heavy language, calling Diddy and Jay-Z monsters, describing their influence like it's been crushing the industry for decades. Then comes the Aaliyah theory that refuses to die. Jaguar went further than most, claiming Jay-Z had a role in getting Aaliyah on that plane, framing it as personal and tied to who benefited afterward. None of this has been proven, but it keeps resurfacing because Jay-Z has never directly addressed it. And online, silence doesn't read neutral. It reads like a decision. Then one more detail made people side-eye everything. When lawsuits against Diddy started stacking up, one name immediately raised eyebrows. Alex Spiro, Jay-Z's personal lawyer, reportedly began appearing around Diddy's legal orbit. And that's when people started asking the obvious question: why is Jay-Z's attorney suddenly showing up here? The theory itself is simple, and that's why it scares people. Control the narrative before more names get dragged into the light. Because if Diddy ever decides to talk, a lot of powerful people don't just get uncomfortable, they could go down with him. That's why the conversation keeps circling back to Jay-Z and how his rise actually happened. You can't talk about that era without bringing up Big L. Big L was one of the first to open doors early. He helped connect Jay-Z to Damon Dash, and negotiations were reportedly in motion for Big L and his team to move into bigger industry spaces. Then, just days after those talks reportedly started, Big L was killed in a drive-by in Harlem. The case remains unsolved to this day. Jaguar Wright has pushed the idea that Big L's death was the first in a string of mysterious endings that seemed to conveniently clear the road for certain people. Coincidence? Maybe. But once people start lining up timelines, they say the pattern starts feeling uncomfortable, not random. Now we move up to level 2, where it stops being about fame and starts being about leverage. That's where Oprah Winfrey and Clive Davis come into the picture. With Oprah, critics point to her proximity to Harvey Weinstein. Photos, events, public support, all while whispers were already circulating. That's where the debate really begins. Someone with that kind of platform could have forced a spotlight early, but she didn't. And in this space, silence gets read as protection, not neutrality. Then there's the controversy around the school she funded in South Africa. Early allegations, public fallout, people fired, official statements made. But critics still argue parts of that story never fully added up. which is why it keeps resurfacing in conversations about oversight, influence, and what powerful people either didn't see or chose not to address. Add resurfacing photos and long-running rumors, and people online start describing Oprah as quiet power. The kind that doesn't need viral moments, because one call can decide who gets booked, who gets buried, and who gets labeled difficult. Then there's Clive Davis, and nobody treats Clive like background noise. He's a legend, Arista Records, decades at the top, careers launched for giants. That's exactly why people pay attention when his name comes up. Suge Knight has claimed for years that Clive and Diddy weren't just mentor and protege, and that Clive allegedly described their relationship as deeper than business. No proof publicly released, just a claim that keeps getting recycled because it fits the broader narrative people already suspect. Diddy didn't rise alone, and when reporters tried to press Clive about Diddy, people point to moments where he looked uncomfortable or refused to answer. Not proof, but the internet replays those clips like tells, slowing them down, analyzing every pause. Then there's the Whitney Houston angle, another story people refuse to let go. The debate around her final days, the people around her, the conflicts behind the scenes, and whether the clean version explains everything. Family comments over the years have fueled that suspicion, and the internet keeps asking one blunt question. How does Clive have decades of heavy rumors around him and never face consequences? That's where the fall guy theory comes from. A lot of people believe Diddy is taking the heat while the real gatekeepers stay protected, operating in spaces where headlines don't reach. Now we hit the top of the pyramid, and this is the name that shocks people the most. T.D. Jakes. Yeah, a pastor, a spiritual authority. And yet 50 Cent has been poking that name for months, keeping it in the mix. The theory is simple. If influence reaches the pulpit, then this isn't just a celebrity problem, it's an ecosystem. The framing is that Diddy needed legitimacy, cover, and respectability. Someone trusted to stand near him and make him look clean by association. And that's where some people claim T.D. Jakes fits in. People also point to how T.D. Jakes appeared during key moments in the documentary rollout. Viewers noticed how he was placed in specific segments, almost like a signal. When Lil Rod talks about waking up sore after being around Diddy's party circle, people noticed T.D. Jakes suddenly appearing on screen talking about love, energy, and healing. A lot of viewers believe that wasn't accidental. They believe 50 Cent was planting a message. Then Cat Williams gets pulled back into it. He said 2024 would be the year everything gets exposed, no matter who you are. And the internet treated it like a forecast, not a joke. As Cat keeps calling out names, people watch T.D. Jakes closely. And they also start paying attention to how Geno Jennings responds. And when T.D. Jakes was finally confronted about the Diddy-related allegations, his response is what sent this whole thing nuclear. He didn't issue a clean, direct denial. Instead, he brushed it off with a "keep it moving." Then he added something that instantly raised eyebrows, implying that even if something were true, repentance could cover sins. And then he followed that by saying he didn't even need to repent about this. That's why it exploded. To the public, it didn't sound like innocence. It sounded like deflection. And once that perception sets in, the internet does what it always does. Jaguar Wright poured gasoline on the fire, saying that if Bishop Jakes was ever around Diddy's party circle, there were only two motives that made sense to her: money or access. She framed those environments as leverage zones, places where influence gets locked in through documentation. According to her, there's alleged video, alleged audio, and alleged circulation. Powerful figures caught on tape doing things they never wanted tied to their names. Whether any of that holds up is a separate question. But once the public believes receipts might exist, the fear stops being about rumors. It becomes about footage. Jaguar went even further, claiming that multiple men have come forward with stories that, in their view, connect Jakes to that same world. No proof has been shown publicly, just claims, alleged accounts, whispers about legal moves happening quietly behind the scenes. And it keeps spreading because it fits the same pattern people have been calling out the entire time. Power protects power until it can't. Then, Gene Deal added his angle. He questioned why a religious leader would even be in proximity to gatherings people describe as anything but clean. He said it's hard to explain that presence unless you're either endorsing the environment or participating in it, and he hinted that he's heard recordings may surface. And if that ever happens, the conversation won't be speculation anymore. It becomes about proof. Diddy, TD Jakes, connected in a way nobody wants to imagine. And that's the real threat hanging over everything right now. Not opinions, not debates, evidence. Now zoom out, because this doesn't stop at one industry. When Elon Musk sat down with Joe Rogan, they weren't just talking celebrity headlines. They were talking power networks, why high-level names move the way they move. Elon's framing wasn't about policy. It was about fear. Fear of exposure. Fear of what happens when the wrong doors open. Rogan brought up Reid Hoffman and asked if he seemed uncomfortable. Elon answered with one word: yes. Then they compared the structure to an Epstein-style compromise model. The idea that once you catch someone in a compromising situation, you don't need to win arguments anymore. You control them. That's the core of this entire pyramid. Not fame, not talent. Control. And once you see it that way, a lot starts making sense. Why certain people never speak. Why certain stories vanish. Why certain names stay protected no matter how loud the noise gets. Dave Chappelle said it differently, but the message landed the same. He's talked about the industry like a trap. Not just contracts, but control. When people asked why he didn't just take his show somewhere else, he compared it to running from one plantation to another. Different master, same chains. If someone that successful felt boxed in, what does that say about everyone else just trying to survive inside the machine? This story isn't over. More names will get dragged into daylight. More rumors will surface. More untouchables will suddenly look touchable. So here's the real question. Do you think TD Jakes is actually the top of this pyramid? Or is he just another layer hiding whoever sits above him? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. And if you thought this was wild, tap the next video on your screen, because we're going even deeper into the names people think are next in line. Meek Mill, Ashton Kutcher, Naomi Campbell. The list keeps growing, and the internet thinks the walls are closing in. See you in the next one.